300 subscribers. Oh man, this dude like did a parody song.
We gotta watch it. We gotta watch it.
Said face palms.
And it was like
another moves like Jagger parody.
Also
the part in the
song.
No, we gotta watch it. That's how we cap the episode
it's
off.
not long.
We watched this video, react live, and edit the video. And
I gotta find it. Let me find this shit. This is hilarious.
Because the moves like Jagger part in the song is the most cringe-worthy.
Right.
Like you're not gonna get it because you don't know the game, but he's like he does a parody song.
That can be our
about
intro
Arthur.
and or
It's
outro.
just-
It goes
for
deep,
the episode.
then quickly goes to the next part.
It's like dance like
Moves like Jaeger.
or whatever the moves like
Just don't make any more parodies
Yes,
with
but
this
he's
song
like,
and Halo.
I got
They
some
don't
moves.
work.
Like
no.
I've got the.
That's all so bad.
Yeah. Oh here we go. Rage like RB.
Preemptive cringe.
I just heard his voice again. Oh man, it's like this is like Omega level cringe.
Oh, I just got the lyric. Yes.
And he's like, look at this semicolon instead of a like.
What
he
happened to
doesn't
his
have
apostrophes?
He's got
Did he run out?
he ran out of he ran out of commas, so he had to start using a semicolon. He ran out his last apostrophe. He used on doll.
I'm not clicking. I don't want this spoiled. What? Why? Why? How many views does this?
Okay, I got
Sasquatch fan 2011. 900 subs.
I love the random name.
Great video. Can't wait you make another vid. Oh no! Oh no!
So this
Face
is
palms,
those
another-
Minecraft parody songs.
If we ever start getting like Patreon money or something like that, I'm gonna go on Fiverr and we're gonna get like a professional singer to do this song.
Oh, that would be awesome.
And make it our channel intro. We should definitely use this in the episode intro and or outro. Yes. Yep, it's over. It was a good run.
Oh, this is perfect.
Alright.
Okay, I'm gonna...
You get water, and let's do this.
Well, what's funny is like the lyrics are actually pretty good for the game. It's like if this was sung well, it would be like a really good video. But it's like also a good video because it's like the singing spat. No, it wouldn't.
Maybe if they got actual.
But it's like
Jaeger
funny
to
for
sing,
Halo
it would
Wars
be
players.
good.
I don't know. Okay, everybody, welcome to the Crash Content Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Halo Wars. I'm Martin, and I'm going to be hosting this episode. Everybody else, say your shit or whatever.
You have to call on us. It's not gonna work if you freeball it. Just go in this order.
Should I restart? Fuck.
No, just do it. This is
do it.
funny. Just
Okay,
just
okay,
go in this
go
order.
out,
Yeah,
go V4
mine's
Extreme
experience.
Alex, go.
All
You're
units,
talking.
all units, all units, all units, all units, all units.
Local units. JNS.
Operation Save the PCP is to go. They're taken down. We gotta save them.
Frigin? Well, I just interrupted you. Fuck. Frigin.
I'm thinking Arby's.
Kyrie.
My laptop is very hydrated right now. My whole room is covered in water. Let's do this.
Cristiano.
My life, that's the right game, right? It's StarCraft, right?
I don't know. I don't know. But anyways, well, today we're going to be talking about RTS for the console, released in 2009. It's called Halo Wars. It was basically piggybacking on the popularity of the Halo franchise, but actually ended up being a really, really good game. Had great reception by pretty much everybody that played it. Like, both the casual fandom and the people that like took it more seriously. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. First thing I want to say before like I talk about anything, I'd like how many people have actually played Halo Wars here?
I have played Halo Wars.
I played Halo Wars, but only at a casual level, and only when I could borrow it from Blockbuster.
What is Halo Wars?
It's an RTS in the Halo
I played
universe.
all the Halo games, but I was like, what is this Halo Wars shit? It looks pretty gay to me. I'll never play it. And I never did. But now I'm not 10 anymore, so we'll see if that changes.
Nope.
What? Nope. Okay.
Nope.
And for the people that did play it, how, like you said, how, like, did you play any multiplayer? That's kind of what I'm going to be talking more about. Although, if like the campaign is the same mechanics for the most part, but did you guys play multiplayer at all?
I think I only played with my friend, like local multiplayer, a couple of times, but mostly I just played the campaign.
I also just played the campaign because I did not have Xbox Live Gold, and I was a broke like 10-year-old kid who did not have money.
That's the age gap, man. I was like fucking 16 or something. Okay. It's like, yeah, but so I guess the first thing I could really talk about is for people that don't know the game is I guess I'll go for there are 6 I'm going to just talk about multiplayer because campaign, it's just an RTS. You like do stuff and there's a story, and that's not sort of what I'm going to focus on. But so I'm going to focus. First thing I should say is like there are 6 characters you can choose from, and they're leaders. And but there's more importantly, there's Covenant and there's UNSC. In the Halo universe, the UNSC are like the humans, like all of the humans and all the planets working together, and the Covenant are like a faction of lots of different alien species together. But in the mechanics of the game, these 2 factions like were fundamentally different in how they played. They both had advantages and disadvantages. The advantage of the UNSC was they generally had stronger units. Their scouts that came out of the main base, you didn't have to build a single building to actually produce a unit, and their scouts were actually quite powerful units. And again, that their units were much stronger, and they had global abilities that you could just drop on the map. One was like a freeze, one was like a carpet bomb, one was just a Mac blast that did damage. And the difference in the Covenant leaders, they had an actual a unit that was your physical leader that you could lead around and play on the map. And the advantage of the Covenant was they could sort of they could put a lot of pressure on early because this leader unit had a lot of health, and they could teleport units directly from their base to their leader. So they could just, at the beginning of the game, just walk the leader over to your base and start teleporting in units and do a lot of pressure. And although the UNC equivalent of that is you would create Warthogs, the scout unit, which is like a jeep with a turret, and you could just create a lot of those and send them over to the unit base. And so both had advantage and disadvantages, but of course, in most games of balance, there are some that ended up being really bad and some that ended up being a lot better.
Okay.
Terran Terran.
They are similar in some regards, but besides being human team and alien team, I think that's where the differences end.
It's the way they played was different. The buildings were different. The bases were different. So like all UNSC had a similar base where if you destroyed buildings on it, you could targeting the main of it would do like it would actually weaken the center. Whereas like with Covenant bases, destroying the buildings on it did not weaken the center. So the center always had a set fixed health amount. Whereas UNSC bases, the health of the center was more or less depending on how many buildings it had up. And
Okay.
there's a lot of differences and a lot of minor ones that I probably won't even remember. But they kind of played fundamentally different. And because of this, it changed like what combos of unit leaders were good, especially in teams. Well, did anyone who played the game? I guess if you only played the campaign, you're only playing UNSC. But JNS, you said you played some online or some local system multiplayer. Did you play the different did you play just a single leader? You remember anything?
Now looking back, I probably just played a multitude without really understanding the meta, because I also had a best friend who's obsessed with Halo, but I don't think he would spend the majority of his time on Halo Wars, just like whatever the current Halo's out, like Halo 4 or something. I think that was back then in I don't remember which year. I just remember it was just like a few years ago, like 2015, 2016, that kind of stuff. So I don't think I was that big galaxy brain yet to know what exactly works, like which combos that would be most effective against the UNSC faction or the Covenant faction. I think I'm just the kind of person just spam units and find out whatever works from there.
Okay,
So I have a question as someone who knows nothing about RTSs at all. Do RTSs usually have a campaign? I thought of them as just a multiplayer thing.
As far as I know, most games that exist have a campaign, because that's like most games don't sell multiplayer only unless it's like League of Legends or something. But maybe I don't know about modern ones. Maybe modern ones, but I would assume the early ones at least had a campaign.
Yeah.
So what is the
RTSs
campaign? Do you just like have to fight progressively harder CPUs in RTS battles, and there's like cutscenes?
It's
like you're like part of a story, and you just like command the army that's in the story, kind of. It's like
I remember the story.
like you have usually the campaigns. So with the underlying RTS game, you have different units, the ability to command units, and the ability to like move them around. And so most RTS campaigns are like different scenarios or different like situations that are already existing, that they kind of place you and your ability to command units and ability to produce units into.
Okay.
For example, in this game, like, I don't know, you get trapped in like this shield world thing, and like you need to fight your way out, but there's like another army that's also trapped in there, and there's also like Flood, which are like parasite thing in the Halo universe, and you have to like fight all of them and then activate this thing that will open up the shield, and so you play that out as like commanding the army that's doing that for you in the game, kind of. And then it goes in.
So like a scenario-based stuff, like complete X objective?
Yes, that kind of stuff. Or like there's one actually really interesting mission where it's like there's a half-complete scarab. A scarab in the Haloverse is like a big spidery thingy that has a laser beam out of its face that like does a bunch of damage. Super big, giant, super power uber tank. Like think of it like a, I don't know, like a Levat. You know, like an Uber unit, like a super massive tank thing. Except for this is a super scarab, so it's not just like the regular scarab is already a scarab, and this thing's like under construction. But so it looks left and right really slowly, and there's also like physical like debris on the map that you can hide your units behind. So like if you run into its face while it's looking left and right, it will just like laser you and destroy your units almost insta kill.
So you said it's like Uber. It's like Uber for lasers.
Yes, it's like Uber for lasers. It's like the new startup idea, and but like you can hide your units behind physical barriers on the map. But then like, so you'll have like some on the left, some on the right. When the laser is facing left, you'll move your right units up and start DPSing it. Then like when it starts to turn away, you hide those units again. So there's like some sort of strategic like stuff that you couldn't really do in multiplayer, because you can't hide behind debris in multiplayer. But for that mission, it was like an important factor to beat this sort of, it was like a boss fight.
That reminds me of boss fights. That's what I was thinking. Sounds very boss fight-esque.
Like other than that, there's not really any boss fights in the game, but that was like a sort of boss fight mission where you're still in RTS and you still have a base and are building units, but like so. And while you're fighting this like scarab, you also have like random units attacking your base, so you have to defend your base too while this is happening.
So you got a lot of value out of this game as a multiplayer game. How do you feel it holds up as a campaign single-player game? Is it good in that respect, relatively?
Really, like for its like, I think it had a more it had better cutscenes and stuff than like the regular Halo campaign at that time. I mean, it was a good story. It was like good lore for the Halo universe. I mean, most of it's like it's most like lore like this is like you could definitely, it doesn't hurt, doesn't help. It's just like a story in and of itself. But it's always nice to see like more context to what was going on in the universe before the Halo events. I liked the characters. It was generally, there was like a cool scene where like 3 Spartans, like, you know, Master Chief is a Spartan, so there's 3 of the other Spartans like fight on this bridge. It was pretty cool. They do some like backflips and shit. It was I remember like really liking that at the time, like thinking it was a really good fight scene. But also the story was pretty interesting.
I also remember that scene as being like, the cutscenes are really sick. Like compared to like Halo that was out at the time, cutscenes looked really amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You might have mentioned this already, but how did this hold up in terms of popularity relative to other Halo games, in terms of sales and general popularity?
If I remember the release cycle, I think it was released before ODST.
Yeah.
And because there was like a long break and no Halo content being released, I think just anyone that played Halo was like, oh, there's a Halo thing, let's get it. So it was relatively popular. Of course, most people were like, oh, after they played it that didn't like RTSs, were not into it.
Not what I wanted.
But then the people that like actually sort of were open and wanted to play a new game, and like a lot of people ended up liking it a lot because it was a good game kind of thing.
So it probably introduced a lot of Halo heads to the RTS genre.
It should.
Yeah,
presumably.
That's what I'm thinking. Oh.
Because a lot of, I mean, I know some of like the early. Yeah, so this got released. Halo was released in February of 2009. ODST was September of 2009. Then there was a whole year before Reach was released, and at this point, like Halo heads were wanting a new game. Like they like Reach had been announced, I believe. ODST had been in the way, and so just any sort of Halo game people wanted to play. So I think it obviously would have probably not been popular at all without the IP. But it actually was a good game and ended up sort of overperforming what you'd expect as like a game that's just benefiting mostly from an IP. Like it outsold expectation. I mean, I say it's out-qualitied. Yes. Out-qualitied expectations is what I'm saying.
What kind of expectations was for the game? And is it just is it just meant to raise in some cheap cash for like merchandising? But just outperform its set benchmark in terms of sales?
I wonder. I would sort of think that if that would be the expectations, but maybe it was higher at the time. I honestly don't remember what people were talking about. It's just I say that in my expectation now. When something's released with an IP, I kind of expect it to just be a cash grab.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I thought at the time or what the community thought at the time.
I just remember it being like very out of place, and to me it was like, yeah, there's like Halo, and then like there's that other Halo game. I don't really know what's going on with that.
The way it seems to me as a complete Halo outsider, it's like Microsoft had this extremely successful IP, and so they were like, I wonder if we can diversify this into other types of games. And so they gave that a shot, I guess.
Probably a failure in that sense, because I feel like the Halo brand has really lost its power. Like, it just died over the course of the early 2010s, and
it's boomer shit now.
Right after Halo Wars was ODST, and ODST was like really different when compared to earlier Halo games.
Halo 3, best Halo.
And then
same
Halo
as
3,
COD and W2.
sick. Halo Reach was
COD.
good too.
Halo Reach
Yeah,
was good.
I like Halo Reach as well.
I did not like Reach because of the release mechanics. They patched those mechanics like a year later. Like, patched Reach is okay, but like, I don't know, the release mechanics with the shields was just basically you could be one like shot but still have a little bit of shields, and the other person could have full shields. If you melee each other, it trades down to where both people have the same health, and so you can just double melee and both people will die, even though you got four. So even you got 4 shots off. They fixed this, but there's a lot of small mechanics like that on release reach that sort of kind of killed the game for me, even though I did play it a lot, like maybe 6 or 7 months later when they started patching stuff like that. There's enough like core mechanics that made it kind of not fun to play when it came for most of it.
You can go.
I remember hearing about Reach and ODST coming out from my friends who had Xbox 360s, and the impression I got, which I think is more or less what we've been saying, was that like they were Halo starved, and then Reach and ODST came out, and they were kind of like not that great. And then I'd never heard of Halo Wars, so that was like, I guess my friends just did not care.
Yeah, like I feel like there was a good portion that just didn't care about Halo Wars.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and I was gonna say it's really interesting to me, like how in this past year, like all the like old giants have been on a nostalgia trip. Like classic WoW came out, and then Modern Warfare came out, and the Halo collection came out. And,
Old RuneScape.
Just, like,
Old RuneScape.
Yeah,
I heard
old
about that
RuneScape
one.
is very cool.
That's been re-released for I guess a long time now, but old
I mean,
RuneScape.
just like WoW Classic, I think it was like a fan-made server or something that was then brought into the fold of the official people.
Yeah, I'm sure Jagex was like, "Wow, that's really cool," versus Blizzard being like, "You think you want that, but you don't." All right. Also, was Halo Wars just an Xbox exclusive, or was it on PC too? Because I swear
Xbox exclusive.
It was on Xbox exclusively.
Yeah,
It released for
I
PC.
swear there was a PC Halo game.
They released it. They released it like in like 2016 or 2017. They re-released a PC version, so a PC version now exists. Like if you wanted to play it.
Okay. So I'm
I'm
just wondering,
thinking of
for the
Halo Combat Evolved.
Yeah, now they're doing the porting all the Halo games to PC. And that's
yeah,
like
it's
a
awesome.
recent
I got it on
thing.
Steam.
I think it's called like Definitive Edition. There's a Halo Wars, like the Halo Wars 1 on PC.
The first Halo was on PC and Xbox.
I was gonna say, I never noticed or thought about this, but why are Microsoft games not on PC? It's Microsoft. What are they doing?
Probably the only thing that sold most of the Xboxes were Halo.
So they just wanted people to buy
Absolutely.
Xboxes.
My first Xbox was a Halo 3 edition Xbox. So
Yeah.
Oh, sick. That's awesome.
Halo was the IP that got Microsoft into the console game. Like,
It was
absolutely.
insanely popular.
Okay, so modern, because Halo, I assume, like at the time was a exclusive Xbox game. What will how will the controls modify to fix like the controller buttons? Because I assume like RTS on the PC would be a lot more complicated compared to a console version.
I have the same question.
this actually might be the biggest brilliancy of the game. Is I think it's like the first game that did console RTS very, very well, very intuitive, and you can actually do a reasonable amount of. Yeah, you're not going to compare to a key like what you can do with mouse and keyboard.
All
It's like you can
units.
actually do a reasonable. Yeah, all units is actually the solution.
units.
Like,
What is that? I don't know what that is.
so all
I
units
don't
selects
understand.
all of your units. It
What does
selects
that mean?
every single.
What does select all your units mean? I've never
So
played
in
an RTS.
in the RTS, like when you're like in your file system and you like highlight a file.
Yeah, I do.
And
that.
you want to drag and drop it somewhere, and so
Hell yeah.
you scoot it over on your desktop. It's like I drag this file and I scoot it over, and now it's over there.
Yeah.
I can also like use my mouse like a paintbrush and select a lot of files, and I can move them all together. Mm-hmm.
So it's like everything that you have on the board, all your warthogs and your Master
Everything.
Chiefs, you move
It's like
them
it's
all
like
to
Control
one
A.
location.
It's Control A.
RTS games are you have a top-down view, and you have like little like units you control.
Okay, but they're gonna be spread out, right? So when I all units them, do they like clump together and then I move them?
Yeah, yeah.
You can command them to
yes.
clump, yeah.
Yeah, if you
Nice
do
clump.
it like if you do it like if you have all fast units like say warthogs, then this isn't bad. But like, yes, if you had a diversified army, you would not all units and then scoot everything and they'd be clumping together and it'd be disgusting. So like bad players would do that. But yes, there was
me.
No, any bad play, like the thing is, it's still like you could just all units and clump everything together, and it's not going to be like the end of the world if it's like not a super competitive game. But yes, if you're tryharding and you're playing good people, you don't. But the thing is, a lot of times if you just had warthogs, like really fast units, then actually all units is fine because you're trying to put all of your units there anyway. You split up your units at the early on, usually maybe to collect supplies. That you would definitely not all units early on because you usually have warthogs in different locations, and so you actually would cycle through them. So okay, back to controls. So cycle through your units. There's D-pad arrows. Like left goes to your bases and cycles through all of your bases. Down cycles through units in different places on the map. So if you have some warthogs up in the top right, you just press down to cycle through them. And then it would and if you just have some on the top right, some on the bottom left, like if you press down, it might go to the top right first. And if you press down a second time, your camera would go to the bottom left. And then once have a group of units selected, you can use local units, which only selects the units that are on screen. And then you select that way. And then use the left and right triggers to select between different types of units. So if you have some like Marines and then some Warthogs in the same place, you can select local units, press the right trigger, and it will select the Warthogs, and then you move just the Warthogs around. And you press the right trigger again, it will select the Marine. That sort of control.
Okay.
And you're saying this all units, local units selection method was something that Halo Wars came up with to make console controller RTS viable, right?
I'm not going to go that far because I don't know the details, but like what I've heard indirectly about it was not just but there's also a radial, like how you build buildings. Like when you click on a building, there's a menu that goes with like the left thumbstick, and it's like a circle where you can like build. And so like top left will be like an upgrade, top right will be an upgrade, and it's really quick and like intuitive.
But when it comes to mouse and keyboard computer RTSs, what are the controls that are like standard for that they had to adapt that were challenging?
Yeah, I was wondering about that too.
Well, I never played a PC RTS. I'm a fraud. Explain.
I've played some StarCraft before. So usually the advantage of having a keyboard is that you have a bajillion different keys. And so a lot of like producing units or like doing specific actions with units are hotkeyed to different keys on your keyboard. And then you can also set groups of units to hotkeys. It's basically hotkeys. So
it's basically just how do we do this with less buttons is kind of the challenge for getting it on the console.
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
And it was really they actually pulled off some amazing stuff because considering like before RTSs like use like almost all the keyboard buttons like do something in RTS or could do something. So like
and it was
moving that down to a controller was no easy task, I'm sure.
And it was really just three things. It was the D-pad, all units, local units, and like that was a beautiful solution. And also the triggers to swap between unit groups, or not groups. You couldn't actually create hotkey unit groups, but like say like if you have half tanks and half gremlins, you could like all units or local units, and then you could pull the right trigger to select your gremlins because you want your gremlins behind your tanks because they have really low health, but they're really important because you use gremlins to stun enemy tanks, and then you put your tanks in the front. So like that's how you would micro those, is you would like local units, put the gremlins behind, then you would like actually use the paintbrush. Like this is where you actually have to use the thumbstick and controller, and you would select individual tanks and move them how you want to move them. Use their canister shells, which was like an ability they had that did extra damage.
Also, when you do all units and you move a group of units, do they all move at the same speed of the slowest unit, or no?
Yes, if you had like Marines and tanks, this is why you would have to cycle through them using the triggers, and like you would all units use the warthogs and then move them separately, then move the you would have to do that. This is again like why if you were bad, you would just all units and just click a place and they would go there very slowly. Also, the pathing in this game wasn't the best. Like, it was kind of, it's not like a, what do you call it? StarCraft seems to have very like tight turns and movement on the units. These movement like had like rounded turns, like rounded angles. The units, and I've noticed like in StarCraft, like if you command a unit to turn around, it like instantly turns around and super responsive. Halo Wars is like they had animations that made them turn around like kind of slowly depending on the unit. Like Warthogs are like a Jeep, so it actually has to turn around and like do a little spin, and tanks sort of had to rotate before they turned. So different units had different like properties on how they moved, and none of them were like super instant responsive like it seems like StarCraft units are, where they sort of instantly turn around when you command them to.
Yeah, some of the gameplay footage I watched that you'd linked, it looked like they got stuck on stuff sometimes too.
Yes, this is actually part of the skill of the game, is knowing how to not get your shit stuck. Just like that's part of the micro, is like not because if there are too many units in the same place, they'll just sort of run into each other. So like I was saying earlier about getting the gremlins behind the tanks, if you just had them clumped very, very clumpy, it might be difficult to even get them untangled, and then you'll just lose all your gremlins because they're in the front. That sort of thing. Well, I guess I could. Is someone talking? I saw someone's.
I'm just trying to think of a question. So, when did Halo Wars start to get competitive? Like, who were that group of people that first started off? Because I've seen you link a few videos of like commentary. So, how did the competitive scene start up?
This I don't know the full history of, because I wasn't there like at the beginning for like the first good players. I know who some like the top of the leaderboard early on was like Iakoic was the name of the player. He was like the number one player, and then there was like someone named Prince, and then there was like the Halo Wars forums is probably where this all started. I'm not sure, but like that's just some names of people that I know. But they all were like, I wasn't good when they were good. I played later. I played like sort of after the game was quote unquote dying or whatever.
Dying? Oh.
Well, I mean, at the same time, like I don't like the general population was probably lower, but the amount of people playing competitively was probably the same. Like it seemed like the initial rush of people playing Halo Wars, because it's a Halo Wars, had died, but there were still people that played because they liked the game for like the actual game, like the mechanics of it. So I'm assuming that it was probably through the forums, and just there's a True Skill ladder. Like True Skill's one of the best elo systems that exists, and it was a strict True Skill system in all the playlists. So it's an easily tell if someone's good or not just by what their rank is.
Right.
So as far as like when there was game battles for it, I know.
Game battles, classic.
There was tournaments that never finished. If you watch the 3v3 video I linked, he's joking about, well, it's just here's another tournament, and like most Halo Wars tournaments, nobody played their matches, so it didn't finish. That was a thing like forever. Like
no one played
people
the matches.
Well, if you host like really big 3v3 tournaments in Xbox Live, and it'll just happen that getting that organized is people would just, a lot of teams would just not play, and then it would just never finish. That was like some of the things.
Why wouldn't they play?
I don't know, honestly.
Because gamer life.
Yeah. That was the thing. I mean, so like what was the origin of the Halo Wars competitive community? I don't know the story. I know when I joined, it was like 2010. It was like a year after the game was out, and like it was sort of dying down in popularity. So it was like maybe the second half of 2010 when I was really getting into the game. And at that point, they actually closed the forums. And then there was a big article, like Halo Wars stats staying up because the community begged for it, because like they closed the forum, but they left the stats up. It was pretty funny. Like I searched Halo Wars, and like that was one of the things that came up as like the big ordeal of them. They closed the Halo Wars forums, but they still left the stats up for the games. Although they actually shut them down like maybe 5 years later. But so I couldn't find my stats. 90% win rate, but that's only because no one knows what they're doing, and it doesn't matter because like against real games it'd be much lower. Like if you like in 3v3s, you'll search, and 9 out of 10 games are people that don't know what they're doing, so you can do whatever you want, and you just can like troll and you'll win. And then you find a real team, and you're like, oh shit, we know these guys. Like, and then you actually have to play, and it was actually exciting whenever you matched like a good team, because it's like most of the time it's just going to be a stomp. So it was always like very, very exciting in 3v3s to match another team that actually knew what they were doing, which actually led to a lot of people just playing custom games, because it was easier to play, just find good players and play custom games than it was to actually match good teams searching in 3v3 matchmaking.
And so was true skill like dependent on your win-loss ratio or something?
Yes, it has a initial high variance thing. Like you'll gain a lot of true skill or lose a lot early on, but once it determines your skill level, you'll adjust much slower. But yes, it's just if you win, you'll gain, and it depends on how good of a player you win or lose against. Like if you beat a true skill 50 player, you're going to gain a lot of true skill, and if you beat a true skill 1 player, you're probably not going to gain anything. So it's like if they're better, you'll gain more. If they're worse, it's similar to ELO. It's more complicated, like mathematically, than ELO. There's some nuance. Like you could probably read like an academic article on true skill. I think those exist. Like when they really, yeah. It's a good system. It's definitely a good system. It's what they used in Halo, Halo 3 for your 50 in Halo 3 or whatever. Which I did not have a 50. I was a scrub. I was a 45 in Halo 3. Yeah.
I probably didn't even get the 45.
Anyway, back to Halo War. What's interesting about Halo Wars is like in Halo 3 there was a million 50s. In Halo Wars there might have been 150 at any given time. Like, and that 50 was definitely boosted, because you couldn't get a legit 50 in Halo Wars without boosting, because there just weren't that many good players. And that's actually based that's part of how true skill works. If there aren't good players, you can only get your true skill that high. If you're the highest player and you're like a 47, you'll have to be, even if you play a 43 and win, you're not going to gain that much. You would have to beat that 43 like a million times. I don't know like the actual number, but you'd have to beat them several times in a row to even get a single increase in rank, because you're that much higher true skill already. And so if there aren't that many great players, it's actually you're not going to have multiple 50s.
So when you say the 50 was definitely boosted, maybe I just don't have that good of a grasp on what boosted means. But boosted how exactly?
Might be like someone with multiple accounts playing their own account against themselves.
Godlike.
Because that player still is good. They would have to be good enough to get the account to like a 45 or something. Yeah. Like they would still be a absolute top player and maybe deserving rank 1, or maybe not. Maybe they're the second. They would be one of the top players anyway. But then to actually get the number to be 50, you might have to have 2 accounts at that skill level and just play them against each other. And the same thing in 2v2. 2v2s there was like a lot more boosting in 2v2s, because like you can have because like what I described about true skill is when you're don't have a lot of games played, the rank will change easier. So if you have a new account, you can rank it up really fast. And this is how most 50s were achieved in 2v2s, is you would like have a good player on a new account with a low rank play with another player who has a high ranked account. It's like maybe a 45, 43, something, whatever, like a high ranked account, and they would pair with each other. And so they would match really higher ranked players, and that account would just be boosted in very few games up to a very high true skill. And then as long as they perform well and continue to win at those games do matter. They do have to win those games and play well. Then you could probably, because the account doesn't have a lot of games, it has a high rate of change. It can change ranks easier. You could get it to a 50. And that's how that's why 2s did have a significant amount of 50s, but again, because it's like easier to boost in 2s. In 1v1s, you actually you would have to like play the same account against itself, or like maybe have a friend that was also good. That said, like the 50 on the 1's leaderboard when I played was like, I don't know, actually, was he a 50? I can't remember if he was a 50 when I played. I know Iakoic, like the first like original OG, like considered best player, he was a 50, and then like I think the player after him that was considered the best was like called Prince, and he was a 50. And then after that it was Mighty Icy, who was the player that was best, and there might have been some in between, but those are the ones I remember. And Mighty Icy was like he was the best player when I was playing, and I was like 0-7 or 10 or something against him. I lost like every game. I played him a lot, and I also lost a lot. It was like
And so is like the whole competitive scene pretty small in terms of like absolute number of players?
There might have been, like, on the forums, there were like maybe 100, like,
Okay.
And
so then does, like, when it comes to a 50, this is like a numeric like comparison between all the active players. Do you feel like, you know, the level of play reached the skill cap of what was possible in the game, or was there just not enough people for that?
I mean, there would be lots of innovations that could have happened just like meta wise and build wise, and I think you could be like, yes, if more people were playing the game, mechanics would be a little bit sharper, and there'd be a little, but I don't think way more. Like I think you'd be doing the same stuff, just be a little bit better at it. Like that's what, like I don't think like what people were doing was like that far off and wrong. More so that like maybe you'd be a little more precise with everything, like just micro and mechanics. And maybe there might be like, I think that what the biggest thing that could have changed meta would be like people using lots of unit groups in lots of places at the same time. That's like what wasn't like. I mean, it started to be done in 3v3s where people were going. The meta changed while I was playing in 3v3. When I started playing 3v3s, people were going tanks. But it slowly shifted to where people Gauss Warthogs every game. And that was because they're fast and you can harass and you can move them in lots of different places, and they're just very hard to deal with. And like if you can control them well and not get them caught, because the Arbiter could just solo an entire army, like any small group of Warthogs, the Arbiter, this leader, his special ability is you go in first, like third person and control him, and he just lunges onto enemy units, and he's like super fast, and so he could sort of solo any small group of units by himself. And that's why every team ran an Arbiter pretty much. It was like an invaluable unit to catch out Warthogs. But as players got better, they got better at splitting up their Warthogs and making it to where they don't lose their entire Warthog army if a Arbiter catches them out. Because you could do things like you could micro this, like say the Arbiter is attacking the fourth hog. You can actually now move the third and the fourth hog away from the other two hogs you have, and then you'll lose 2 hogs instead of all 4 hogs. And so there's a lot of micro tricks to not lose all of your hogs to the Arbiter. There's also better communication, just knowing where the Arbiter was on the map at all times, because he could solo all of your Warthogs. And then players got much better at using, like, instead of just using one big clump of all units Warthogs, they then started, like, again, using maybe 2. I don't know, maybe in some cases 3. I mean, it was really more common to have 2 groups of hogs. 3 is like more, you could do it, but like that's where like the skill would be, is like actually having 3 separate groups of hogs on different points of the map, harassing lots of people at the same time and actually microing that well. That's like where there's a skill ceiling that maybe was not completely met. Although I think players got better after I stopped playing, and they were doing that sort of thing more. I just don't know to what level they were doing it.
Yeah, it's just like APM at that point. Like how many times can you flip around the map and like micromanage?
Yeah, and remember, you don't have unit groups. You have to use the D-pad and cycle between. Yeah. So it's like there is a limit to like what you can do with a controller, but it hadn't been completely reached, and the next level would have probably been just controlling like I think like 4 groups of Gauss Warthogs and harassing 3 bases at the same time. While like that kind of thing.
But this has been re-released on PC now, right? So it's got mouse and keyboard. So I don't know. Ceiling is shattered.
I haven't seen anyone like playing it seriously competitively PC. I wonder if like people. Like I don't think there's been a community to put the effort in to actually do that. So I don't know what's.
When did they shut down the console servers?
I don't know.
How long has the gap been between?
They were still open in like 2014, 2015. I remember, but I don't know.
So something like 4 years would be the gap between the console servers shutting down and the PC remake. Something like that.
No, only like a couple of years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was this ever at any in-person events? Like, was it ever in an MLG as an actual tournament or an exhibition or anything that you know of?
I don't think so. I don't think it was. I mean, it was a Game Battles game, and then there were online tournaments, and then there was a forum. I didn't tell you guys, but like there was like some dude that made a forum after they closed the Halo Wars forum, and that was like where it was lazyfrog.us. It doesn't exist anymore. I checked. The player's gamer tag was LazyFrogUS, so the site was lazyfrog.us. It was that was like
I'm seeing on the Wikipedia that GameStop in 2009 ran Halo Wars tournaments at 1,000 of their locations. So
okay, well that would have
might
been
be
before
like
them.
the only thing.
And that's like before anyone knew how to play. Like that's like the meta would have not been developed at all. Like although 1v1 is like the one thing where somebody could probably just randomly play, not interact with the community at all, and still have a good idea what they're doing, because you can just figure out by playing people in 1v1. It was 3v3 and 2v3 whether there's like actually you just had to talk to people to know what people did. It was like a lot more. I don't think you. Yeah, like you and your two friends are not going to figure out like what's the best way to play. It's less likely that you would do it. Like we're in 1v1s, you can kind of see what your opponent's doing and learn from it. Like the strategies and like you wouldn't know that like double covenant UNSC was the best way to go. And in 3v3 teams were always double covenant and one UNSC. The UNSC player went hogs. Although when I played, they went tanks, but the meta changed. Towards the end of when I stopped playing, people were starting to go warthogs, and it was more warthogs than tanks probably by the time I stopped it. Especially the best players were all going warthogs by the time I played, but the bad players were still going tanks some, and I was in the bad player camp where we still built tanks a lot.
Tanks are more badass than warthogs.
The thing is, it's an interesting like rock paper scissors thing where like the best army on paper, like straight up, if you just straight up like full pop fault, like tanks are way better than warthogs. So the Covenant players always went air, so the Covenant players went either banshees or vampires. Vampires are an anti-air unit. So like what's that StarCraft unit, like the flying thing that is good against air? The StarCraft 2 I'm thinking of. What's that?
I don't remember unit names, but I know what you're talking
Terran
about.
unit?
Yes, the Terran unit. It was like air and only shot.
I don't.
The Viking.
Well.
Yeah, vampires are like Vikings, kind of.
You're right.
Yeah, so vampires were very, very, very good. They're like the best anti-air unit because they could freeze enemy air units and just like then there's like you just press Y and you cross map stasis glitch them and then they just like die. They just can't move and they slowly die and your vampires suck their health because they're vampire and it's like called a vampire, so they suck health. So basically the best army was like on paper would be full population power turret tanks, which is the second highest tank upgrading. I didn't talk about this earlier, but each of the UNSC leader had a super unit. So like Captain Cutter had ODSTs, which are like super powerful infantry, which is like one extra upgrade from the normal highest infantry upgrade, and they could drop from the sky anywhere on the map. But infantry generally sucked, and it was just never worth it to go for this upgrade because it cost $1,800, and $1,800 is too much money really to pay for an upgrade in a realistic game, and it's also infantry, and infantry was just way too slow to be viable. You just couldn't like if you had 30 infantry, it would just take like forever for them to get across the map. So it was no one ever went infantry, just because they're slow, and they're also easy to kite. Like, and but there was a tank super unit called Grizzly, but it was actually worse than the previous upgrade for some weird reasons because tanks have an ability called canister shell, which is just like a super rocket that shoots out of the tank. It's like a flat cannon, kind of like a scatter shot thing that it basically is just like you press Y and you do a bunch of damage, like shoots out a little rocket that does extra damage on the units they're targeting. And the problem was with the Grizzly was even though it had plus 1.25 health and damage on its normal gun, its canister shell was terrible. It did like no damage. So even though the base tank of the Grizzly had more health and did more damage, in a 10-on-10 tank fight, the previous upgrade, the power turret, would win because its canister shell was so much more powerful. You could select 3 tanks, put 3 canister shells on another enemy tank, it would insta kill it, or it'll actually get a red bar, then you have to target it down a little bit. But anyway, you could micro your canister shell and you would just win the tank battle if you actually micro properly. So it's like interesting thing like that is like the best upgrade for tank was actually never used because it was actually worse than the second highest upgrade. Although with bad players, if you just all unit like clicked your units at each other, Grizzlies would probably win. But if you microed your canister shell properly, the power turret was better.
I see.
And this is like, there's like a popular YouTube, like the best Halo Wars YouTuber who deleted all his videos because I think he got a real job and it was like he's a teacher, so he maybe it was for like not students couldn't find him or something. But he made a video explaining like the actual details on it. But even before that video, all the good players know you just go power turret, it's better. Which is funny for like, and if you're a new player, power turret's the worst upgrade ever because it doesn't do anything. Like canister shell, when you upgrade from regular tanks to canister shell, you go from not having an ability to having an ability. But when you go from a canister shell to power turret, the only noticeable difference is the turret turns faster. And so you're like, like when you first played the game, you're like, wow, this upgrade sucks. It just makes the turret turn faster. But in reality, it's 1.25 damage and health, and makes the turret faster, and makes the canister shell do a lot more damage.
And I missed this early on, but it's just the 2 factions?
Well, okay, I didn't go into the specific leaders. There's 3 leaders in each of the 2 factions.
Oh, okay, got it, okay.
So, and in the UNSC, the 3 leaders are Captain Cutter, and each one has a super unit, and a special bonus, and a leader power. So, Captain Cutter's super unit, like I said, was the ODST. It's like an infantry unit that you can drop from the sky. Like, you can drop like 10 of them at a time, and like... So, like, you can be in a fight, you lost 10 units, you can instantly drop in ODST. Like, if it's cheap, it would be used, but it's, like, really expensive. That's, could have been competitively viable if it wasn't so expensive. And you would have to upgrade, like, 4 infantry upgrades to get it. Like, it would have been, like, viable if it just wasn't, like, such an investment. So that's his super unit. His leader power is the Mac Blast, which is just, like, a single laser that... Like, not a laser, like a big, like a railgun shot from space that just shoots like a straight single line. It was good for like targeting down a building or shooting into a clump of units, just did damage, AoE kind of thing. And then his bonus was that his bases started 1 extra upgrade high. So Cutter was specifically good on maps where in Halo Wars, most of the expansions you actually have to destroy before you can take them, meaning they're like rebel bases and they have like AI defending them and some turrets. But there were certain maps where there were like just open bases where you could just instantly buy them, and on those maps, Cutter was a very good leader because his base started an extra upgrade ahead, which meant you had like it's basically like a free $400 of resources. In Halo Wars, people called it dollars, even though it was called resources. It wasn't gold, it was called resources. I think it was called supplies was the name. But a lot of people just called it dollars. I don't know why, that's just what people said.
I think it's just more shorter.
You cut out there, I couldn't hear that.
Oh, and I think it's just easier for them to comprehend it. It's just more of a quick reference.
So instead of supplies, people just said, give me... and it was just... I've got $1,000. It was kind of funny. I think it's funny. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, when you said like $1,800 was expensive for a military operation, I was like,
not that expensive. Yeah, in-game supplies. It was $1,800 was a lot. Like, that's a lot of supplies. $1,800 is so much. Although this is how like casual players would play, is you would pick like Captain Cutter and you would just have your one base and you would just sit there for about 8 minutes and you would only upgrade infantry until you got ODST, and then you would click, like you would queue up 30 infantry out of the same barracks and you would wait for like, I don't know, 3-4 minutes, and then you'd have your 30 ODST, and then you'd delete a building, and then you'd upgrade, and you'd get a field armory, and then you'd get like the upgrade that allows you more population. Then so you build 10 more ODST. Then you have your 40 ODST, and then you walk over across the map very slowly at like 15 minutes to the enemy base. That's like the casual Halo Wars
Meanwhile,
experience.
your opponent was super turtling.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it gets into super turtling. Meanwhile, your opponent, and then you can't. That's the experience. That's so that's the casual experience.
Explain super turtling. This is your opportunity. Explain super turtling.
So super turtling was, you could do it on any map, and there was like variations on it, but like the best setup was on a map called Fort Dean, where there are these like in the game there are like, if you put there are infantry garrisons that basically give your infantry like ridiculous health. Like it takes like a full army, like a
Back up. Tell our dear listeners what super turtling is, high level. And then
high level, it is like the high level of super turtling is, if you know what turtling is, turtling is when you play defensive and you let the enemy attack you because you have defender's advantage, and so you turtle. Maybe you're behind and you need to get back in the game. Super turtling is when you just decide you're going to turtle from the start of the game, and you're just never going to attack for the entire game, and you're just going to make an impenetrable wall and just sit there for hours just because it's fun and make the enemy quit. And so the setup for this, the best setup for this, was on Fort Dean. And like, I didn't discover this. There was like a YouTuber in the Halo Wars community that made a video like how to super turtle, and he made a lot of super turtle videos. It was called the Death Toaster, was his name, and he played with like the other popular popular in the Halo Wars sphere, which isn't like that many viewers, but he was like the partner of the guy that I explained earlier, who did like the video on the tanks and had to delete his channel because he was a teacher or something.
Yep.
I guess that's not that relevant. But anyway, he was a very sarcastic voice. I loved his videos, very funny. But I'll give him credit for like creating the whole Super Turtle thing in Halo Wars because it was really fun. But anyway, the setup is on a specific map. There are these walls in the middle of the map that if you put infantry in them, like you can't drive units through, like ground units can't go through it. So the step one is you put infantry in all of the walls. Step two is there's healing units called engineers that only Covenant can build. And you build like 30 of these floating air healers and you put them on the wall. So basically, if they attack the wall, you can heal the wall faster than they can ever do damage to it. Step three is there's an anti-air, like long-range sniper sort of unit called the Cobra that like it can't move once it's deployed, but when it's deployed, it's kind of like an artillery unit, and it shoots like a railgun that just does tons of damage to vehicles. And so you put a wall of these Cobras, like basically an artillery line behind the force field wall. So now that they like drive vehicles up to the wall, they just get like one-shotted by your wall of Cobras. Step four is you level up the Brute Chieftain. One is the highest health unit in the game, I believe. Maybe Scarabs are higher, but like there's a mechanic in the game called Veterancy, where if a single unit kills a lot of things, it will get a star, which increases his health. I believe his damage as well. So it increases his health and damage. So you have a Brute Chieftain, and at the beginning of the game, you walk your Brute Chieftain around, clear all the rebel bases, and get him stars, so he basically turns into as Death Toaster said, a 3-star monster. And he's basically, he so much health, nothing can kill him. And the same as like the wall, because the way healers work is they heal based on like health, I believe. And I think like when you put them in the wall, they don't actually have extra health. They just have extra resistance, possibly. So they still heal really fast, but they take no damage. And the Brute Chieftain was the same, because he was like a leader. He could get healed really fast by engineers. So basically, once you put a couple of engineers above him and he has 3 stars, nothing can ever kill him. And so you usually would put the Brute Chieftain at the right, or there was also walls on the right or left side. There was like the big middle wall where you put all your Cobras, but there was also walls on the right or left side. And you'd usually put like something faster, like the Brute Chieftain on one side and maybe 3 Spartan tanks. Spartans would like give your units extra health and damage, so you would put Spartans in some regular tanks. Anyway, you basically set up a wall where they couldn't attack. And the final population of your units was just anti-air. You put anti-air turrets on all your buildings, and you also had one person go full population anti-air UNSC units, and the Brute Chieftain would build engineers and vampires. And so the whole point is, then you just sit there and just fuck around for like 2 hours hanging out in an Xbox Live party, having a good time, and it was just really fun because you would just have massive clouds of enemy units come towards you, and they would just get obliterated over and over and over. It's like it was just hilarious. And it was always funny to see what people would try. That was the other thing. It's like, what are they going to do next?
Because this is literally, it was unwinnable for them, right? And so it was just until they quit the match, this would keep going. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like
it's so fun.
Unwinnable. It's not obvious that it's unwinnable. So,
but. It's definitely not obvious it's unwinnable. And honestly, it was probably breakable. Like, maybe a good team could figure out something to do, and then, basically, if you did break it, if you broke the turtle well enough, you would probably, like, the defender, the turtle would probably have to transition into normal units, like normal competitive units, because you would probably transition into just building more tanks and vampires if, like, you actually got broken hard enough. But, like, that never happened. Like, if a serious competitive team tried to break a super turtle, they might be able to break through, and then you might not be able to set up the Cobras fast enough before they continue to pump through it. And if that were to happen, maybe you would just transition into, because you still have a ton of money. You've just been sitting there forever. So you would probably just transition into building more tanks and more vampires and stop building like Wolverines and Cobras and stop trying to have the wall be invincible. But again, like, players you played against, they would not like break the wall and then continuously send units to where they broke it. They might like break it for a second and then you defeat their army and then you put it back up, is what would normally happen. Like they might, like, if they would put like all three of their armies would like maybe break a single point, and then you would sort of clean it up and then you would just put the wall back together, kind of, is that would normally happen.
So this makes me conclude that there is no time limit on the games. They can just go
no time limit. Yeah, so like some of these would 4 hours, 5 hours.
Okay.
I don't know if I had one that was 5 hours. Maybe. I definitely
What was
4 hours.
typical?
So not with Super Turtling, but you can like get a match that's just like 3 hours because you're playing.
Well, with good players, like, matches at the longest would be like 30 minutes maybe, and normally maybe I'd say the average is probably like 12 or 15, and that's because some games end instantly where like you just get fucked in the, like, because everyone like in 3v3, like, usually some person's just going to get fucked in the beginning because they'll get, like, because you have two covenants and you usually send them both to the same base, although there's actually a lot of things you could do. That's why 3v3s were so interesting. You could send both covenant to the same base, you could send covenant to separate bases, you could have one covenant defend, the other attack. There's like so many things you could do, but a lot of the time, like, it would just be all out, where like both covenants, like, all out rush both covenants, and then somebody ends up with 0 supply pads and like has no money, and it's like, and that was the typical situation is, like, I played the Arbiter in teams, and usually you got targeted if you were the Arbiter, and so you don't have enough money, because like your ability is like rage is really important.
Yeah,
but it also costs.
Explain rage because apparently it's a meme. I don't know.
Well, basically, the way rage works is you select your Arbiter, you press the Y button, and you go into third person and control him directly, so you can like run around. So the left thumbstick runs around, and he's like pretty fast, he's not as fast as maybe Warthogs, but he's faster than tanks. He's like in between speed. He's faster than tanks, but slower than Warthogs. And you with a right stick, you like lunge onto enemy units and attack them. So it's basically like you just do a front flip with your swords and you hit the unit, and it does like it does a ton of damage. But it also costs like 40 supplies every time you swing. And there's also passively consumed supplies to actually just be in rage mode at all. But in any case, this ability made it like, also, it basically made people think hogs weren't viable for a while before people got better. Because like if there are 4 Warthogs and you are an Arbiter, those 4 Warthogs die always, and a Warthog costs 150 resources, and it took 2 rage slices to kill a Warthog, so you spend 80 resources to kill 150 resources. So a massively favorable trade. And basically Warthogs could not fight the Arbiter unless they reached like a critical mass where there's just a ton of them.
Or you do that micro
and also any small skirmish, the Arbiter could just, before tanks are fully upgraded, you could sort of, if you were really good, like this is not a good idea, but like if tanks were 1 upgrade below power turret canister shell, a single Arbiter, if he was Tech 2 upgrade, could kill an entire army of tanks. Although the Arbiter would have to be a good player. That's like where it comes into like, it's very glitchy, and it's very easy to get stuck in like the center of like so if you're like just a noob and you're playing the Arbiter, you'll probably just click your right thumbstick and you'll just end up in the middle of the entire enemy army, just stuck in the middle of all the tanks, and you'll just be taking damage and you'll die. But if you're like, if you like know how to like move him and there is some luck because he's very glitchy. But like if you're better at not getting glitched, you'll stay on the outside of enemy units and take less damage. And you basically run backwards and swing, and then run backwards and swing because he lunges. He lunges like maybe like I don't know, like 50 feet or something, like into enemy units. So you basically would run backwards and lunge and run backwards and lunge, and that way you'd stay on the outskirts of the enemy units to where you're not being targeted by all of them at the same time. And like that, you could actually kill an entire army of canister shell tanks too. Warthogs, you couldn't really micro like that. Like Warthogs, it was just if they have enough hogs, you'll die. Like if it's like 30 Warthogs, you're probably not going to kill all of them unless you're full upgraded. Full upgraded Arbiter could kill like anything, but except for power turret. Full army of power turret, you probably, I don't care how good you are, you're probably not going to rage 10 power turret. That would be insane.
So if your Arbiter dies, is there a way to get him back, or is it one per match?
You have a building called the Temple, and you can rebuild them.
Aha.
So the Temple is like the tech of the Covenant, like in UNSC, like reactors give you tech levels. For Covenant, the Temple gives you tech levels, kind of upgrade tech levels, basically.
Yeah.
So like I like
different aesthetics.
Yeah, and normally, not just aesthetics, like sort of how easy it is to upgrade, like because like with UNSC, you can build separate reactors on separate bases, where like Covenant, that you just have one temple, you can't have more than one, and to upgrade your tech level, you have to buy the upgrade in the temple, whereas with UNSC, you can put like 4 reactors up on separate bases, and your tech level will be determined by how many reactors you have up. It's a little different. But anyway, like, it was very rare to get past Tech 2 as a Covenant. Like, in those really long, like I said, 30-minute games, I guess you might be able to get Tech 3, but it was pretty rare that it would happen. It would still happen sometimes, but most games you would be Tech 2 and end up on Tech 2 as a Covenant. And UNSC would always get the max tech level because it was sort of like the Covenant were more support, and like the UNSC really played the main army. So, and the Arbiter was like the best support character. Although the people didn't go double, like the second best Covenant, which people also went. So the most popular combos were Arbiter Brute Anders, Arbiter Brute Forge, or double Arbiter Anders or double Arbiter Forge for 3v3. And the reason you wouldn't always go double Arbiter was because the Brute was just really, really good at pressuring early. Basically, all of the Covenant can produce a unit out of their main base without building a building. So like at the start of, well, actually you have to finish your temple first, but out of the core of the base, you can build a unit. Like the UNSCs all build Warthogs out of their base, which I said is really good. Warthogs are great units as a scout unit because they end up being they actually were the main army unit in 3v3s, at least late stage meta. But the Brute's base unit is the best base unit of all the Covenants. It's the Brute Squad. They basically just are an infantry unit that does a ton of damage to buildings. So you just walk the Brute Chieftain over to an enemy base, build a couple of Brute Squads, and just do a ton of damage to their base early on. It's crazy pressure early on. And so basically, usually you would have an Arbiter that's like support and would rage and get hogs and also help in he would rage in big engagements and help turn fights. But and the Arbiter would also help rush too. But usually if someone was going to play defense, the Arbiter would play defense. So, but the Brute was almost always rushing. He was always the advantage of the Brute is to just damage the enemy base, shut down their economy early, and then build air. So the Brute would just build Brutes, rush, do a ton of damage early, and then just build air units. And the Arbiter he would still rush, but he would invest less money into air because the Arbiter needs money to rage. So having 2 Arbiters, you would usually fall behind against a Brute because the Brute just does tons of damage early game. So the advantage of 2 Arbiters is it's easier to catch out hogs, and in a theoretical late game scenario where you're like even on economy, 2 Arbiters raging at the same time will turn a fight. Like if you have 2 Arbiters that's kind of. And there are some games. I can remember some games where I was raging and my other Arbiter. We had double Arbiter. And we just killed everything. That was pretty fun. But There are some definitely. It was definitely fun to play the Arbiter, but this goes into like one of the funny things about Arbiters. Like it was very easy to just want to rage all the time, and there was a thing called hero arbitering where you just like go in against 10 tanks and die instantly. That was the thing. Where it's like. It happened enough to where there was a word for it. Like when somebody runs into the Arbiter and they have no support, and it's like, what are you doing? Why? And then you just like canister shell them and kill them instantly. And so it's like you didn't want a hero Arbiter because that was always just a way to lose the game because you just run in and lose your Arbiter for nothing. And now they can push up on you because you don't have an Arbiter. So normally it was best just to catch out straggling units and not try to engage a full army unless you were engaging with your teammate. Like, say your UNSC is pushing in with their tanks, and you're an Arbiter. You would go into rage mode with the tanks as they're fighting, and you would support the fight, kind of.
And I had, you if you had something else, you can finish too. But I had a question back with Super Turtling, just about like, are there any other crazy like game breaking or just stupid tech that people would do and like shit they found out?
Well, there was serious like really like I hated 2v2s because there's just a lot of janky map mechanics because like on the maps there were different like little hooks or interactive things that you could do on the map. Like there was one map where there was like building slots that you could just build on, but they were like over an invisible bridge that spawned at 1 minute. But also in the game, there was a pelican, which like it's like it allows you to fly your units like a ground unit somewhere. So good players found out that if player one moves their ghost to one side of this bridge, like it's an island that you can't reach. But if player one puts their scout unit on one side of the unreachable island and you drive your warthog to the other side of the reachable island, you can pelican your warthog over to the ghost, and then while it's flying over you can see the building slot and you can then build on it. And so and so what this leads to is the most toxic garbage metagame ever, where the game starts and you race to the bridge and whoever gets the pelican over faster wins. Or has a huge economy advantage.
Let's go.
So it's literally just a race who gets there first and who queues up the building. and it only worked on one side of the map because there was an island on both sides of the map. But on one side, like the rebel base would actually attack the building slot, but on the other side, the good side, the one that everyone raced to, the rebel base would not attack it. So anyway, like that means you spend like 200 resources on a pelican, and there's a 50%, well not a 50% chance whether you're faster or not. You could end up wasting $200 on the pelican, and then now they get 2 extra building slots, and you're just fucked because they have the better economy. So it's like a coin flip matchup that was like just because of the map, the way it worked, stuff like that. There was also a map that had like. There's like little sentinels that you can build out of this thing, and you could put shields on your units. This one was actually good though. This was actually like cool. Like you could buy these little shield units that are unique to this specific map, and so you could like buy shield warthogs or shield arbiter or actually it was more common. There was also an offensive. It was basically a support thing that would float over a unit, so you would attach it to your unit. It was a sentinel, and so you'd go for the offensive sentinel, and it would just shoot lasers, and you would attach it to your leader, and then you'd walk the leader. So normally you're gonna walk your leader over to the enemy base anyway, but when you attach the sentinel to it, it just made your damage be a lot more. It would like shoot lasers at the enemy buildings. It made your harass better, and the UNSC player would usually put shields on their warthogs. So there's like a cool little map where you could put map specific units. Like if you go attack this area, you can build like these support unit things. There's a lot of like map specific strategies where there was hooks, as they called them, on the map that you could fight for. Although there was also maps that were called non-hook maps, but every map had hooks, but then quote unquote non-hook maps were the maps where the hooks were just not competitively viable and just useless to go for. There's like one there's one called the release where you could release the flood, but it was just like so useless. They would send like 3 infantry units over to the enemy base, and they would just die instantly. It was like, why would you ever use that at all?
And were there like not like standardized maps that were just used for like competitive play in the same way that like Battlefield might be used in Smash, or is that basically what non-hook maps were?
all of the maps were used. All of the maps are good except for that one I explained. That was probably the only one I think is pretty bullshit. The other ones are actually good. Like the mechanics that the maps added uniquely were actually good. I would just say that was.
It just seems like the game would be highly dependent on what map gets chosen or like picked or.
But I mean, you're playing against each other. It's both like the only map that's bullshit is that one I mentioned. That was just it was a race. That's the only one that was actually like cancer, like where it was like a coin flip at the beginning.
So could you opt out of playing on that map when you're like matching for online games or whatever?
No, it was just open matchmaking. You if you got it, you got it. So you had to know how to do that. You had to know how to do the Pelican thing.
What percentage of the time would you wind up playing against people who just didn't know about that?
Oh, most
of the time.
Like most of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
But like so non-competitive, it's free and you just win because you know the Pelican thing. When you're playing good players and you both know the Pelican game, worst map ever because it's just like whoever gets it wins. It's a coin flip.
Would you just quit after the other team got it, or would you play it out?
You'd try. You could still win.
Pelican.
You could still win, but it's like you're behind.
What would you say your odds are? What's the matchup after they get the Pelican?
I don't know, like 30-70 or something. Yeah, 40-60. 30-70, 40-60. Probably 35-60.
35-65. Like yeah, that might be worth playing it out.
Yeah.
That'd be very satisfying to win.
No, I think it happened once or twice, and you're always like, yeah, we didn't get the Pelican, but we won. Yeah, but
this game had 1v1, it had 2v2, it had 3v3. Did anything stand out as being like the primary or main game mode, like singles is in Smash and then doubles is kind of also there? Were these all played kind of equally?
It depends on the player. I personally thought 3v3 was the best game type. I definitely thought it was like the funnest. But some people really like to play twos though. I hated twos. Twos was my least favorite. I mean, I would still play like twos is like the easiest to play because you just need one friend, and it's like I would say it's easier to play. It's kind of easier to just queue up with a friend than it is to queue up ones. Queuing up ones is like kind of dreadful. Oh, just play ones by yourself, and it's kind of intense, you know. But like just having one person to play as a team makes it easier to sort of just play the game. But I would say like even though it's easier to queue twos and like more mentally stressful to queue up 1v1s and high competitive when you're high true skill, ones as a core, like ignoring like the stressfulness is I think a funner game mode. But 3v3s was the best for me. Like I loved 3v3s, even though I was probably worst at 2v. I was probably better at 3s than I was at 2s, but I was probably best at 1s by like skill level, but I liked 3s the most.
So when you were playing 3s, who were the other two people that you played with? How did that work?
It was a guy named Saintly was the person I played the most. He was like from the UK. His tag was Saintly. And then there was my friend from high school that I played some with, and our third would rotate. It would be a lot of different people.
But you basically just played the game a lot, and then you kind of found a couple people that you mostly tried to queue with for 3s.
I don't know how I found Saintly. Like I actually don't remember how that happened.
That's pretty cool.
But I ended up like that was a cool thing having a friend with like in the UK, and he was always like it would be like 8 o'clock for me. It's 12 a.m. for him. Like it was like midnight for him all the time. Like. So we're super turtling, and for me it's like maybe 12 o'clock, and it's like 5 a.m. for him.
Super turtle grind, don't stop.
Yeah, you just like I'm not going to sleep. I'm
going to go to sleep and wake up and see if they're still fighting this super turtle.
Exactly. That was the experience. It was just that was just a great hangout and a party thing to do. It was so fun. Like you just talk about whatever, and because it's a super turtle and there's massive armies all the time, it always ridiculous. It never was not fun because the only time it was not fun is if they just never attacked. That would happen sometimes where it's like they just don't attack, and then you're just like, man, I wish they would attack more. But other than that, but even if they're not attacking, you can just hang out in the party and the voice chat and just talk. But it was always funny because people they would start building troll units just because they knew they couldn't do anything. Sometimes it's like there was like a unit called the Cyclops, which was totally useless, and then like after like an hour or 2 hours in, a Forge player usually would end up going like, okay, I'm building 40 Cyclopses, I don't care anymore, and they just like run them into your wall and die. It was funny.
Could you get high true skill just by super turtling?
Yo.
If you match it, you would win the games against. You would win the games against bad players, but if you match a real team, you'd lose like instantly.
Okay.
Like if you match a real team, you'd lose.
The way super turtling works, if I understand it, is you have to. Only bad players will let you set it up in the beginning, right? So it's not truly viable.
They have to not come to your side of the map, kind of. Like they have to sort of just. But the thing is, most casual players, what they did is this is what they would do. They would pick like their favorite UNSC leader, and then they would build the super unit because it's like it says it on the leader, right?
Yeah,
it says it has a special
super unit.
Yeah, it says it like on the character on the leader select screen. It says Captain Cutter Super Unit ODST, Professor Anders Super Unit Hawk, Sergeant Ford's Super Unit Grizzly, and they'd say, okay, I'm gonna go with this guy, and I'm gonna build the Grizzly.
Yeah, that almost makes it look like the object of the game is to build that thing if you're new. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And so they just sit at their and they wouldn't they also would not build a second base. They just sit at their one base and they would just build everything from the one base, 4 reactors on the same base. I mean, of course you wouldn't know at that time. That's what I did my first game. I just tried to build ODSTs my first game. Like my first game of Halo Wars in 1v1s. I was like, okay, I'm going to pick Captain Cutter and I'm going to build ODSTs. Yeah. And then at 6 minutes, which is actually pretty slow, at 6 minutes a bunch of Warthogs came to my base and killed me. That was like my first game, like when I first got the game. So it's like the normal experience. What was really funny is like the people would say, "You're bad, you rushed," and it's just like, oh my god, you don't.
Oh yeah, there's always the very first baby step of learning to play a game, and as soon as someone takes that very first baby step, the people who are still on step 0, it's like, oh well, you just did this cheap thing.
I mean, like in Age of Empires, you could learn to play. Any RTS game really, like.
No rushing allowed.
No rush. You attack me before 15-minute mark, you're rushing. No. You're cheap.
But what's funny is like how much nuance there is. Like what I was talking about 3v3 is like you can send both leaders to both bases. You can send leaders to separate bases. You can bring one leader on defense. Like there is so much nuance in all of the things you can do. To write it off as you just did this at all is just like so. It's hilarious.
And for 1s, 2s, and 3s, is the map size the same?
No, they're appropriately sized for the amount of players. Yeah,
because I had noticed in the 1v1 close game video that you sent us, it seemed like, and this is just like a question I have in general, like it seemed like the maps are pretty small. Relatively.
Chasms is that's the smallest map in the game. Chasms.
Okay.
Yeah. Although
it seemed like League size compared to like StarCraft sized.
Yeah. The biggest map is probably Frozen Valley. If you watch the 3v3, that was in that. They actually played all that 3v3. They play all the maps because it was like a tournament. But yeah, the 3's maps were pretty big, but they're not like huge either. They're reasonably sized, pretty big, but not like gigantic. Fort Dean was pretty small. Fort Dean was like that's what made it like it was kind of like bottlenecky, which made it good for turtling. That's why it was like also the walls. It was small. Had those like walls. That's what made it good for super turtling. Although like on Death Toaster's channel, he super turtled on every map. He started with the original strat, but he would make videos where he'd like the true super turtle on this game. We trade bases and sit in the corner of Frozen Valley, and Frozen Valley is not a good map for super turtling. But the whole point is like they made a challenge out of trying to super turtle on every single map. Is what.
But yeah, so it is technically possible to super turtle on most maps.
But it's just like fun. It was fun to do it on Fort Dean because the walls and because the walls give you vision, so your Cobra line can just snipe an entire army of tanks, just like pew, and there's like really satisfying laser like railgunny pew sound that they shoot, and it's just funny to watch a tank blow up to like Cobra wall where they can't even see. They're out of vision, and the tank just blows up. It's like it is satisfying. Oh, the other thing that the other super turtling thing that like also from Death Toaster is like they made this thing called the Vulcan, where if you can pelican multiple Cobras on top of each other, and so you have like 10 units like in a single unit space, so they just like put them on top of each other and deploy them. So it's like this one thing that's like they called it as a joke, like just to give it a name, they called it the Vulcan, and it was just 10 Cobras stacked on top of each other, and it was just like one shot at any vehicle.
Any other tips and tricks for trolling new players?
trolling new players.
Mike, what do you know that we could take advantage of?
Do anything.
If you're
and
like,
it'll be bad.
if you're a brand new player, like the easiest way to win would just to be pick the brute chieftain, go temple first, walk your brute chieftain over to their base, and like the instant your brute chieftain spawn, make sure you build brutes out of your main base, and just build warehouses and just basically walk your brute chieftain over, and then teleport your brute squads into your teleporter onto your brute, and just attack their supply pads, and they might resign instantly.
I'm looking at Death Toaster's YouTube channel, and I see a bunch of Halo Wars videos from 10 years ago, a hodgepodge of other stuff from like 7 years ago, and then his most recent video is my early thoughts about Halo Wars 2 3 years ago. So
Yeah,
I guess he didn't get into the Halo Wars 2
Yeah,
content game,
it seems like people didn't like Halo Wars 2. It seems like because none of the people that played Halo Wars 1 got into it is what I noticed. So I mean, maybe it must have just not been the same. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Shout outs to Death Toaster. Hope he sees this, bros. But that is curious about 2 versus 1 and whether or not people liked it. Because have you played it?
I haven't played it. No.
Halo Wars 2.
Yeah, I've seen trailer announcements. My best friend's excited for it, but I don't think I've heard any discussion of Halo Wars 2 recently.
It's like when they announced it. It was like the same experience I have when they announce like a anime live action adaptation.
Oh,
it's
for
like
real? It's that bad?
And then
no, it's not that bad. It's not that bad, but the experience, like the experience of like you hear about something coming out and then it comes out, but then you don't hear about it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was that bad, but like you know how like if you never say like you don't actually actively like read like the reviews when it came out, like because like I never like read the reviews of people saying, oh, this movie sucks. I just noticed that people didn't talk about it, which like then I can infer that it probably wasn't good because people weren't talking about it, you know.
I also
it could be mediocre.
Poking around during this podcast, I noticed that there is a pretty active Reddit Halo Wars subreddit. So
yeah, I was gonna ask if it's still active to this day. If people playing competitive Halo Wars,
I guess I'm looking at. I was never a Reddit person. I contributed. I was on Lazy Frog US until that was the one. That was the Halo Wars forum.
The thing about Reddit is that it's bad. But it's a good barometer for like if anyone's out there, you know, and there's like memes on here. There's a lot of activity in the last day or so.
I see Chris Hansen.
So they're out
no
there.
offense to like the 2 viewers that we get from Halo Wars subreddit when this video gets posted on it.
Yeah, I wonder how many people we could have offended.
They probably have a Discord channel now. I'm guessing.
Click that dislike if you claim from Reddit. Drop a dislike.
I just said I never played it. I said, and it gives me the impression that it might have not been great because the people that played Halo Wars 1 didn't seem to transition. So, like, I don't know that it was bad. I just got the impression that it wasn't like the best game ever because everyone didn't switch over and instantly play it.
So you don't even really know much about what is different between the two of them.
No, I've seen someone play like three missions on a live stream once. I just sort of watched.
I'll have to watch that Death
Never
Toaster
actually
video
played
and find
Halo
out.
Wars 2. How can you fucking say that the game is actually bad if you've never fucking played it? Fuck.
I was honestly surprised when they announced Halo Wars 2 because even though Halo Wars, I get like the Halo Wars is a niche game comparatively to most Halo games. Like,
yeah,
but it is a sequel. It's not a real release.
Yeah.
And it's on PC, so it's played with a keyboard and a mouse and not an Xbox controller. Or both? Either? Both at the same time?
I assume it's released for both PC.
Yeah, it's probably both.
God, I gotta watch this Death Toaster video. That's what that should have been the homework. Now I'm curious. I'm looking through the comments, but all the comments are people just saying, "Oh, you're not dead," because he posted it here. Which he might be dead by now. Who knows?
Yeah, like you're like a beloved YouTuber when you post something and everyone's like, "Ah, come back." Like it's very like not a huge channel, but like definitely quality shit. He was funny. Like just the way he talked about things was hilarious.
Well, Martin, I get the impression from you talking about all this stuff that you were like fairly involved in the competitive scene in Halo Wars. And, like,
the thing is, like,
top players
people didn't really know me. like I was on the forums, I lurked, and I had my people I played with. But like even though we were relatively we were like the lower end of high level players, I would say, like not the best, like especially in teams. Like in 1v1s, I actually by skill wise I was probably one of the best players at the small time slice when I played a lot of 1v1s. But again, nobody knew who, like people 1v1s was kind of isolated. Like the community was like cuz you're just sort of playing along. You're just a name, you know.
You know,
And
I was gonna not ask this because this is only gonna help me understand things and literally no one else. But actually, I am asking it. So, if you were to take your melee skill, because I know how good you are at melee, and convert that to a Halo Wars true skill ranking from the time you played, what number would that be? See what I mean? If someone was as good at Halo Wars in the era when you played as you are at melee in 2014 when I knew how good or 2016 I guess.
Like 2025, I don't know.
20 okay, so mid. So your Halo Wars level would be like Arcadian
would be
top
like
8 melee player ish.
Would be like somebody that like maybe gets like top 16 at big tournaments or top, you know, like
when you say big tournaments you mean like regionals. Not like Genesis.
I mean, by percentage wise, it would be literally. Well, depending on if you talk threes, I was worse. If you talk like ones, I was better. If it was ones, I mean, it would literally be like
probably top 100.
Yeah,
big dude.
But if it was like
wow.
But if it was like threes, I was like a little worse. So maybe
you gotta get into Halo.
Regional.
You gotta get into Halo Wars 2. You've got to carry the torch, be the streamer,
but the
make
thing is,
it an
played,
esport.
Like,
go pro gamer.
It has to like be time sliced because like if you took all of the ones players of all times, I wouldn't be like because then I'm lower, right? Because not all of the good players were playing at all the times, right? That's the thing. It was just in the time I was playing, I was one of the better players. That's like
right.
Although I was like I was 0 and I don't know how many losses against the best player. Like I never beat that guy. But I don't think there was another player that I was like 0 and whatever against. I mean there was players I was negative against. Like I know King of Reason, a Forge player, I was pretty negative against. And there was like I think I was actually pretty close to even against Marco Style, but this was before I think Marco Style later just got way better. Because like I know he was like the best player like a year after I played. But so like I remember playing him and winning, and I remember playing him and losing. I just remember matching him a lot in general. But maybe he was paused on me and I have like memory bias. I don't know. Because looking back, he was like I looked at like the history of the game and he was like by far considered the best player. So I do remember winning against him. So that's like maybe he was just not as good then and later got way better. That's my impression because like he was better than Mighty Icy, the guy I couldn't touch, like the guy I could never win against. So that's what.
Yep.
It wasn't RPS because I mean I wasn't.
Well, I mean you have like
I was,
you can
I was,
beat
I was,
a better player and lose to a worse player because things are matchup dependent. That's just what I meant by RPS.
Well, I wasn't better. I mean, maybe I was better at that time.
But you were saying you had a better win rate on a better player, and then you could not beat the worst player.
Maybe at the time he was not as good. That's what I think.
Okay,
I think a year later he just got better.
Wait, so when did the Halo Wars skill peak? Because you were playing after the popularity was dying down.
I think
were the top players
later.
still getting better? Yeah.
I think late stage Halo Wars was better. Like even after I played was probably better from what I can see.
So it just kept getting better as it went.
That's like what it looks like from what I can tell.
That's what you would expect.
Like just watching that 3v3 tournament video I linked. Like I can tell that they're fucking good. They're doing good things, and like the meta has clearly changed at that point to where people are going hogs every game. That was a change that happened like when I was playing. Like the best players started going hogs, and then it seems to later trickle down to where everybody just went hogs. But like people are still like my part. We usually went tanks. My team, so that's just what it was. We usually built tanks when I played with my team.
Is there any like drama that happened between the top players that you know about?
The forums are a shit show. I didn't like us. There was a lot of trash talking at like the top level.
YouTube beef. Gamer YouTube beef.
No, like that. There is like those forums
360 no scope your mom. Oh,
like basically, I just found like the groups I liked, and I was only sort of in them. But like the forums, yeah, there was like a bunch of shit talking and garbage.
Well, exactly like that YouTube comment that I posted a screenshot of the other day. That seems very typical to me especially for like Xbox Live Online, where this guy is saying like, "Oh, I'd love to play this top player," and someone replies, I looked you up. Your true skill is 19. You would get wiped. And someone says, "You can never know the true outcome. I've seen lower rated players win."
See, that's not what was more common was like actual pretty decent players, just like.
Oh, that's even better. That's real.
Calling each other bad. That was like pretty common in the forums.
Get into Halo Wars 2, become a streamer, and start a Halo Wars 2 drama YouTube channel.
I don't even know if I would be good.
The Keemstar of Halo Wars.
That's actually pretty funny that guy exists, and like his entire like existence has just been like start shit from like.
It's profitable. It's so profitable.
What's funny is I remember like his original like YouTube channel that was like they would just troll an Xbox Live parties.
Yeah, he was just trolling an Xbox Live.
I remember that channel. That was pretty funny. But I just remember the forums. There was like a bunch of toxicity about how long it took you to get good. So like if somebody was like playing for a while, but they weren't good like instantly when they started, that's like, oh, that guy's not really good. He's not really talented. He took too long to get good.
I had a similar but less toxic mentality with a lot of my hobbies, where I was always very interested in how quickly people got good. But I don't think I ever like tried to detract from how good someone was. But I was always very curious about that.
That reason is why I stopped playing Melee in 2014, because I noticed everybody around me that started at the same time were getting better faster, and I was like, maybe it's just not the game for me.
Well, literally the whole decade I played Melee, I just watched everyone who started after me get better than me, and it was like between 6 to 18 months was how long.
But so like when I took that year hiatus and then came back in like maybe was it 2015? I forget, but like I think it was 2015 when I started playing again, and basically at that point I was like, I'm just not going to try and be like care about being great. I'll just sort of play the game because it's fun to go to tournaments. And that's why I came back, because it was still fun to sort of play for that time. And what's funny is I improved more then than I did when I was trying to like be good, which is weird. It's although, yeah, but yeah, that was like the attitude of it was really just like one specific team. Like we're like trying to say who is the greatest of all time, who actually improved. It's like the game's like a fucking 2-year-old game. Like how can you tell that?
The greatest of all time.
Yes. And there's like that was like the type of discussions in the forums, and like there's this one specific guy. It's like DC Sparta. He was like the guy that would do this most of the time. I think he was like pretty young too. I think he was like a younger kid, but he was like extra toxic, and he would always like just post like all the disgusting stuff from 4chan, like just like diarrhea and all these like
what, like metaphorical diarrhea or like actual pictures?
No,
of
like poop, like actual. You know, like those clickbait, like click shock photos that
like
people post.
And just
yeah. He would just do that. He would do that. That's
always good. You gotta have somebody like that on your forum.
In the forums, that's like
community role.
That's core forum, right? Having that in there. You know,
you have to have a villain to unite everyone against.
Yeah, I think DC Sparta was the villain to unite. Although he was like. It was weird. He didn't play anymore when I played. He was just like, "Oh, I was a good player like a month, like this summer."
Y'all took too long to get good. It don't count.
But then school started again.
Like that was actually what it was. Like he wasn't playing anymore. He was still on the forums, and I was like,
yeah.
So but like my favorite, there were definitely some really good players that I liked. Like there was a certain group of 3 guys that were like one of the top 3's teams, and whenever I got into like we would play customs with those guys, they were really great. So it just depends. There's like a few toxic people, but for the most part it was fine.
And is this a game that you play at all anymore, even sparingly?
Nah,
or
I haven't.
Like...
The last time I played a multiplayer game was like 2014, 2015.
And is there like any like adjacent Halo Wars content you still keep up with, or is this basically just like all like a trip down memory lane?
It's mostly a trip down memory lane. Once in a blue moon, I might click a Death Toaster video. Like, I actually I resubscribed to his YouTube channel like a year ago, even though he had no content, just because it's so good memories of his shit's so funny. Like, I mean, I remember I watched his "I'm going to the gas station" video, and I enjoed it. Or like,
I don't know what that is, but I like that kind of video, so I'm gonna go.
Is it a video where he literally just goes to a gas station?
No. He's like, I'm going to work. I think he worked at a gas station at this point, and so like. He's like, I'm going to work, and I just watched his video. I'm like, I don't know, like, I was like, why do I enjoy this? And he had a Skyrim My House video. That was a good one. Oh yeah, it's let's go to work, not or also let's come home from the doctor. Let's go to the doctor.
Let's come home. Oh, looks like he had a perilous drive in the rain home from the doctor.
Those are the videos that really build up the personality.
Stormy weather, yo. It's stormy weather. Those are the quality videos. Yeah.
Yeah, those slice of life videos that show more a human side of him.
Dude, like 2008, like slice of life YouTube videos are the best.
Oh, so good. It was all downhill from there.
Yeah, like once optimization happened.
We need a lecture on that.
Now it's like too much production, too much. It's not just like it's not just like
what the fuck they were doing.
It's not just like now. It's like this was like
now there's a profit motive,
camera.
and there's so many eyes on it, and the algorithm is so ruthless, and people are like trying to succeed that way, and it's also harder to find good stuff because of that. But that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. So what you're saying is we should get rid of monetization entirely.
And algorithms, which is literally just everything a computer does. So no more computers.
It is funny how like monetization really has polluted so many things and like made it hard to enjoy.
Well, I think all things are going to be like that.
Corrupts.
Like they're just going to start out good, and then when they get big enough and profitable enough, they will become bad. They will become like pop music radio stations, which is like YouTube has become the pop music radio station of what a video sharing site can be, where it's just like find the lowest common denominator appeal and promote the ever-living crap out of it at the expense of everything else.
Just like
so you've got to keep leaving. When the neighborhood gentrifies, you've got to keep going.
I do want to note, if you're listening to this podcast in the future after this channel has been demonetized, how's it going? Please continue to give us money and watch our videos.
Yeah, if you're watching
really
this in like
appreciate it.
If you're watching this in like 2029, like what the fuck are you doing in your life right
like,
now? How did you find
alive?
this?
Are you in your bunker?
If YouTube
maybe
still
Halo
exists.
Wars 3 came out and they're like, shit.
There's an episode on that.
It's really good.
Halo Wars Infinite is just an RTS. It's Halo Wars 3 in disguise.
It's better than StarCraft. It's better than any RTS that's ever come before. And the Halo brand name has been revitalized and rekindled from the ashes. And
that's the most optimistic future we could think of.
StarCraft and Halo Universe crossover RTS.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what'd be good? Halo Wars 3 crossover with StarCraft 2. How about that?
Crossover.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool?
It'd be like the Smash Bros of RTSs. Just put them all into one thing.
That could actually be a really good idea.
Like Zerg, Flood, Protoss, Covenant, Terran, UNSC. Make it happen.
Yeah, why isn't there a Flood faction? What's up with that? I want to play
Flood faction.
Well, I mean,
they're a map hazard. Flood map hazard that was useless. Like I said, the release map, it was a non-hook map because the Flood was useless.
Well,
there's actually multiple Flood maps. Krevitz had some too. But,
we got anything else? I feel like we're kind of slowing down. Shall we hit any remaining points?
I don't remember any.
I have one last question. The memes. Were there any good memes kind of within the Halo Wars community?
Sounds like a no.
No. Oh,
no good
memes. I don't know if like I was saying like Hero Arbiter, that kind of thing, where it's just like that was like a meme, I guess.
I guess Super Turtling is kind of a meme.
Super Turtles, but Hero Arbiter was definitely one where it's just like, pause up A was like, because that's resign. Time to pause up. That's not a meme, but there's like terminology and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah, I don't know. Not like hardcore memes, but I guess the most closest thing I can think of is like Hero Arbiter, because it was like it would happen so often where you just like crack up because someone tries to like go in with their solo Arbiter, or they're about to lose the game, and like there's no chance in the world they'll win. They start raging like one tank, they get canister shelled, instantly die. It's just like you would actually you're on the voice comms, you would just like laugh. It was funny. It was like, oh, here he comes.
There he goes.
Here he comes. Hero Arbiter up. There he goes. That would happen enough. It happened enough to where it was like pretty funny. It was like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? I mean, I would do it too. I was like, I'm gonna rage these 10 tanks. Like, no. It was always a bad idea, except for like the one time it works, and then you feel really cool because you like soloed a bunch of tanks.
Hero Arbiter.
Yeah.
Hero Arbiter.
No, actually, one time I went in for a Hero Arbiter rage. My teammate resigned because we were gonna lose. It looked like we were gonna lose. I kill all the tanks. I was like, no, we could have won the game, and we actually could have won. It was like so sad. I was like, man, he's like, yeah, I just saw that. It was like I had nothing left, and you were just like a solo Arbiter. I just resigned. It's like,
and he lived the dream.
Then he watches me rage all the tanks, and it's like, oh man. I mean, yeah, you can't expect that to happen, but they didn't have like the final upgrade yet, and I had a Tech 2 Arbiter, and it was like it just worked out. But that was like. But 90% of the time, it's usually you just go in and die, and it's like you feel stupid.
I think I do remember the last question that I have now, which is there like a most memorable game that you remember? And can you like paint us a picture of what this experience was like at all?
I don't think I can. A single game. Like, I remember this game, that specific game I remember, where I was like, I felt cool, because it was a cool, because like, I've raged all the fucking tanks, and then my teammate resigned. That was pretty cool. There's, like, some really long, painful losses against Mighty Icy.
Did you ever get close?
I mean, I got pretty close, but, like, I couldn't break, he would go turrets, and I couldn't, like, break the defense. You have to have a balance of harassing. And like if you engage the brute directly, it's kind of hard to fight. And like there's like I get into a really long like micro Goss Hornet versus Wraith Brute Chieftain. But like he would just go all Wraith against me a lot. And so I'd build like air units and Goss Warthogs, and I'd get into these long micro battles of just fighting him. And then I just eventually would lose, like, and not be able to fight all the tanks. Or these were Wraiths. The Covenant tanks weren't as good, but like they were only used in 1v1s because in 3v3s you would build UNSC units. But I had a lot of long games against him that I remember because it was like I just you remember what's more like because his name was like at the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah.
And then I mean Anders mirrors like are all just a wash for me because they all played out the same. But I have played so many of those. That was by far the most played 1v1 matchup. It's just Anders mirrors. It's a good 3v3s. I'm trying to think. I more just remember like playing the same play. Like I always lost to like this team called ZZZZ Knight, and I'm sure like if like he wasn't considered like a top player, but we would always lose to that team. They were a good team, but like they weren't like considered the top of the top. But we would always lose to that guy. That guy's and his two partners. I'm trying to. Man, there was a game where like we lost to. I just have weird memories of like weird leader combos that like good players sometimes went weird stuff, but like a specific game.
No, it doesn't have to be a specific game. Like all these memories you have are pretty indicative as they are.
Yeah, like I remember going up against Kai's and his brother and a third, and they were playing double brute Anders. That was pretty cool. And this was like when the meta was to go tanks every game and to go double arbiter every game. But like they went double brute Anders and like went Goss, which like again Anders became the popular UNSC leader, and you like at in-game meta you actually just went Goss every game. But like at this point people were still going tanks, and it was cool to play a team that was going double brute Anders, no arbiter, and make it work. That was pretty fun. I don't know. Yeah, it's just a bunch of like random stuff, like single. But as far as like a whole game where I remember everything that happened, like yeah, I don't really have anything that's like a specific game.
It's just been cool to like hear about, because Halo Wars was a game I never played, and at this point I don't think I will, because it doesn't seem like.
Yeah, it's kind of dead. Like
yeah,
there's not.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like
and
I don't even know if
never knew
their servers
the
are anymore.
like.
I don't even know if the servers are like. I don't know if you can play. Maybe.
Well, thank you for the nuggets, though. Fucking transcending
definitely like memorable. Definitely it was a great time, great game. Like great, like community was pretty fun. Like despite like even though there's like some shit talky Xbox Live stuff, like the great people, the good people were so fun to hang out with, like in the parties.
Yeah. It's fun learning about new niche interests that was good for its time, but
kind of a product of its time.
Mm-hmm. Are there any of these people that you keep up with or like have talked to since you stopped playing the game? Unfortunately,
no. I mean, I haven't one of them was like our third that I sometimes played with my high school friend, but even him I haven't talked a lot to. I wish I would like Saintly. That'd be fun to like talk to that guy again, because we played a lot. Like that guy, we played so much, and there was like some of these other people that were just in parties. Like I remember there was a guy that had a kid, and he was like joking that like we were playing with our like he was building warthogs, and like I think he was the UNSC in our game, and his son was just playing with trucks, and he's like it's kind of funny because like he's playing with his trucks and I'm playing with my trucks. And it was also funny because like he said his wife thought it was kind of weird that he was playing with 17-year-olds and he was like 30, and he was like it was like kind of interesting to hear that perspective, like when I was like younger, like oh yeah, this like an older person, and like because like obviously now if like I'm not that old, but if I had like maybe if I was like 5 or 6 years older, and then I had like a wife or something, and then I'm playing with like 16-year-olds online. It's like
that happens all the time in MMOs. You'll find people that are like really like older people playing MMOs with. Oh my god! So many times there's been people with children, like playing MMOs, and like. Oh.
Did you have like the conversation about them having had conversations with other people about it being weird? Like that's what's interesting, is like the meta of like you talk to the person about them thinking, like being told by other people that it's weird, but they're like they know it's not that weird, but it's like at the same time they understand why it seems weird, and it's like, and then you're on the other side of that. That's what's interesting.
Yeah,
it's like.
I'm so insulated from that seeming weird after all of my hobbies being things like this, where everything that's outside of the game is completely irrelevant and equalized. And there's like 9-year-olds and 30-year-olds at Melee tournaments, and anyone in any demographic could be any skill level, and everything about you is totally irrelevant.
Yeah.
I get some of that myself.
That was my first experience with that, though, so it was just a distinct memory. And also that I don't know why the fact that I remember them saying that about the trucks like years later is just like I guess that's a memorable moment where it's like for some reason I remember that was like a galaxy brain thing, playing with the trucks.
Nice try. So I guess that guy Zoomer's kids are like getting screwed out of their high school graduation by COVID-19 right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this is really gonna scar them for life.
Wait, how long does this line up? I don't know if they'd graduated yet. 10 years? He might have been like 13. I don't know. It's probably not graduated yet.
A real Zoomer, though.
True. Yeah, late Zoomer. Mid to late Zoomer.
I just ask because like I always have really bittersweet feelings about like all the friends you make online. Like just like going through my Xbox Live like friends list from 10
It's so sad because those are good friends. Like they were good friends, and you just like never see them.
I don't know. There's like plenty of friends I'm like, who the fuck was this person? But then just like other people, it's like, dude, I remember we used to play like Battlefield together like every single day. And then I'll see you tomorrow. Last online 6 years ago.
I see that.
Yeah.
Single tear falls.
Yeah, especially when you played it like for years. Like I played definitely Saintly. I played with like for a full year. Played like it was like a solid like you played a lot, and then like. And there's some other ones from other games too, but yeah. Oh, that's another thing about watching these old Halo Ward videos. I was in Xbox Live parties with a lot of these people, so it was like it was like jarring. Oh yeah, I remember that guy. Like I remember Kai's or whatever. I mean, he might not remember me, but because like I might have only been a party once or twice, but it's still like I think I played more with his brother. I think, but
yeah. Well, we still have. Are we gonna listen to the song together, or is it just gonna play us out?
Oh,
I mean,
oh yeah, Frigin asked about memes. We have the ultimate meme.
Wait.
The thing is, this thing came out after I stopped playing the game. So like, I wasn't aware of this when it came out. I saw it like a few years later. I looked back. I was like, oh, that's funny. But it's like I wasn't actually
like
still
Jaeger.
playing moves like
Jaeger.
Jaguar. Yeah, I guess hopefully that'll play at some point during the audio.
We'll
like right now, so they know what we're talking about.
I mean, you want to hijack this guy's content? It's pretty quality. I don't know if we can like just steal his content.
We'll play out like the first minute or so at the end of the episode. People need to hear this, and we will link this. It's
okay.
It's an experience.
Give him the true boost of viewers that he needs.
Even though he has more viewers.
Even though he eclipses us in subscribers and viewers.
Yeah.
Dude,
with
100
his
subscriber
dank Minecraft
special,
Castle mega build. Xbox 360 not done yet.
Wait, where is this in Sasquatch channel?
It's like his like 5th video from the top.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Maybe we can like cross over. He'll get like all 18 of
the
our
real
subscribers.
thing is S Pro Mitch, the most popular Halo Wars YouTuber, him deleting all his videos because he became a math teacher. That's the real tragedy.
It's like when you see if anyone played Roblox, occasionally people would delete all of their games. Like one of the most popular Roblox games, some guy was like, he became religious and deleted his game. And it was
What?
just a tragedy.
You can't get to heaven if you play Roblox, you know. But if you delete the games, it's fine.
He had like a zombie survival game, and I guess it was now blasphemy or something, and he deleted it.
Zombies.
Just call it a Lazarus survival game. And
anyway, what a time.
All right.
Oh my gosh.
Are we going to end? I don't have.
I guess
I'm
so.
We're kind of dragging. Yeah.
Before we do, let's go ahead and look at comments from the last episode.
Oh shit.
Oh, wait,
Do we have any new ones? I don't think we have any new
comments?
ones.
Do we have?
We have one new comment on the neurotyping episode.
Oh my god.
Ooh, I'm excited. I haven't
to
seen
hear
it yet.
Did we not do that
Zaphod.
one? I thought we did this one already.
I see 4chan reaction images.
Yes, Zaphod just says 4chan reaction images.
What's that mean?
I don't know what that means, but
Look at this photograph. No, just the look at this photograph.
Yeah, it's probably about the thumbnail.
Yeah.
Wait, is that
I haven't watched the whole video version of this yet, so I don't know if Arcade there might have tossed in some reaction images to something, but Zaphod, thank you for
shout-outs to Zaphod.
Yeah, thank you for watching our content, and we hope you
let's take a quick look at Zaphod's channel.
Watch this one
here. He's got 31 subs, so he mogs us in terms of sub counts, or excuse me, Zaphod mogs us in terms of subscriber count.
But
looks like he's got a Blend S meme up there. He's got some League of Legends content. Go check it out. Check out Zaphod. Content crashes.
That is the only comment still on the video?
That is the only comment on this video.
That is truly shameful. Okay, I'll say it again. I'll say it every time. If you're still here, leave a comment. Tell me to eat ass. I don't care. Just let me know that you're there.
Yeah, we promise we'll get
and
better.
that's it. And
well, let's not promise that, but
yeah, no promise.
We'll try.
I don't know about that.
And
we will continue.
Yeah, while the
keep
still
making
low,
things.
We definitely
and before we all die
at some point, and you can get that dopamine boost if you're still here. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, that's it. Let's kill it.
Let's
kill it.
Bye,
everyone.
Oh, bye.
Good Halo
Bye, guys. See you next time.
Next time on this podcast.